first, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Hiren Gupta. I'm from Mumbai, India.
I'm V. Alexander. I'm from New Haven, Connecticut, and I used to live in Houston, Texas.
I'm Omar. I'm from Yemen.
I'm Fansal. I'm from Bhutan.
Yeah, I live in an apartment in Mumbai, and we have 3 rooms in our apartment, and I just have a sibling. We don't live in a joint family. We have extra room because a lot of guests normally pass by whenever they are in Mumbai.
I have a mother and a father. I'm an only child. And we had a moderately sized house with with a pool in the back, a nice backyard. And then we moved to New Haven, Connecticut. And then my parents found a house that they really loved, and an old house that they wanted to renovate. And so they spent about 4 years renovating this house that sits on about 2 acres of land. Well, we have about 5 floors total, a basement, a first floor, a second floor, a third floor, and attic. And I would say quite a lot of room.
I grew up in Yemen. Basically, I spent the first 16 years of my life in Yemen, except for 2 years which I spent in Saudi Arabia. But my life in Yemen was, well, I moved, I lived in 4 different cities in Yemen, ranging from like a small town in the south to like the capital, which is the most populated city in Yemen. So, and in each place it was different. In my hometown, we had a huge house. It was more of a building with like apartments in it, and we lived in one apartment. My uncle lived in another one.
So it was like a family.
It was like a family, huge house. And yeah, my grandma was living with us and some of my aunts too, so it was huge. And then when we moved to the south, we had a house. We rented a house with a backyard, and it was really nice. It was simple. I don't remember much of that because that was when I was like 7 to 9, something like that. Then I moved to the capital, which I believe had the most impact on my life. And we basically rented different apartments most of the time. We never had a house in the capital, so we didn't have a backyard or anything, and we were just living, me and my close family, my parents and my siblings.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 4 siblings, 2 sisters and three sisters and 1 brother. Yeah.
For my whole life, I have grown up in Bhutan, except for high school. I've been to India, but growing up in Bhutan is really different compared to the lifestyles that people have here in the U.S. I lived with my grandparents. I mean, not my grandparents, my grandfather and my parents, and we had a 3-storied house in the beginning. It was me, my 2 sisters, my younger brother, my grandfather, and my parents. But later on, we moved to another place, and in that place we had a small 1-storied house.
Like cottage?
Like a cottage, yeah. But it was more spacious, but it was 1-storied.
I used to play chess, cricket, and soccer a lot. Because these days, soccer is very popular in India. Like,
We spent a lot of time outside, Foursquare, all that sort of stuff.
Around that age?
In Yemen, soccer, I don't know if you would count soccer as a game or as a sport, but soccer was the most popular thing. It's still the most popular thing.
Yeah.
We get to play like in the streets, like me and my like neighbors and my friends. We just play soccer in the street. That's what I used to do pretty much every afternoon.
Well, at least for me, it was marble. I don't know if you guys know, but
The
little marble, we used to draw a circle, and we used to always play this right beside the roads back home. Because beside the roads, they would have like some kind of like a plain, like soil thing where you could like, it was a good environment to play. It was a little dirty, but we never really cared about it.
Yeah. And like,
so mostly I spend my childhood playing outside, but there are also times when I was inside playing PlayStation when it came out. But this was, I would say, later in my childhood life.
I spent a lot of time playing video games. I was a nerd when I was a kid, but I think it was from like 13 years old to, I don't remember when exactly, but in my high school, I kind of stopped playing video games.
yeah.
But before that, I used to play video games a lot, and at the same time play, like being outside and do a lot of outside activities too.
It gives out a positive vibe. I think it's really important to have a backyard because sometimes you just need the fresh air, and in big cities like Mumbai, it's very difficult to, get fresh air and like pass the time.
If children are young and growing up, I think it's important for them to be exposed to outdoors, and part of that is having a backyard.
Since I spent most of my life in Yemen, in the city, in the capital, having a backyard is not a common thing at all. People live in like, because it's like there are 3 million people live in this city, so most of the people live in apartments rather than in like houses. However, like if you go to the rural area in Yemen or like my hometown, almost each house have their space, either like backyard or front yard, but they have that, and it's really important for those people, especially like for example, my aunts, my grandma, and just like the older generation, they have to have their outdoor space where they can like do their like stuff, like grow some vegetables or those things.
I grew up in our first home that I knew of. It was right in the middle of a town, so we didn't really have a backyard or some sort of stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the house was like really huge enough for me, at least for me and my brother, to be playing around in the house. We even used to play soccer in the house.
India has like 1.2 billion people, and Mumbai has 25 million people, and not everyone can afford a car in Mumbai because a lot of people don't earn that much to afford a car.
Well, it depends whether I'm living in a city or whether I'm living in a more of a rural area. I think you can commute and you can use public transportation. I think that would cut back on a lot of greenhouse gases.
In the cities, it's not really necessarily like you can use public transportation. Most of people in Yemen use public transportation. Like, you don't own a car unless you're like middle class or above.
Yeah.
Like, and in Yemen, like the majority of people are like lower class. So poverty is high, so like they don't own cars, and they still manage to like live without cars. I think perfectly. It's just having a car is a bonus.
Well, it depends on places, because I grew up in Bumtown when I was a child, and then I later moved to the capital city, Thimphu.
Yeah.
And the difference is that in Thimphu you have all those public transports, and they're quite reliable and they're quite everywhere. So you can almost get to places everywhere with those public transports.
Have you used this public
Yeah,
transportation?
I used taxis a lot when I was going to school in the capital city. But then when you look at the other side, when you look at other districts and all, they really don't have much public transport. Even the taxis are really expensive. They're so much more expensive than the ones in the capital.
So people like rely more on like walking instead of using a taxi, right?
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah,
Because it's more expensive.
And also, a lot of the people in like other districts compared to the capital city are uneducated, and most of them really can't drive a car.
Yeah.
So then, well, it's a choice too, but they prefer walking rather than taking a car.
o'clock, and all the time I was surrounded by cars, and like it was a lot of people. It's too much, like too many people around you, and with like so much disturbance around you. But yeah, it's so fresh and it's so clean. Like you just go out, you will see like everything's like much cleaner and less people. It's a big thing. I mean, like if you want a peaceful area to live in. Yeah. So I mean, I come from a huge city, and you know, Norton is very small, so I think it's much more peaceful here.
So the transition from like Yemen to Hong Kong, I had like a bit of a cultural shock because like there was a huge difference in the level of like advancement slash like the use of technology in Hong Kong. So and I don't like when it comes to environment, I don't think Hong Kong was the greatest example. It's like it's very the city itself was really polluted. In Yemen, even in Sana'a, the capital, the air is still really clean. People like people never actually complain about like oh the weather being bad or like it's being foggy or it's being like smoggy or anything like that. We never complain about like pollution in Yemen, regardless where we are. While in Hong Kong, like there was always a complaint about like how polluted the city is, and we would always get warning about that. I think it reached a point where sometimes we had to wear masks too.
The transition from Bhutan to my high school and from high school to the US. From high school to the US is almost the same thing because I went to an international school and the school was filled up with like international students. But the transition from Bhutan to my high school was really drastic. For example, when I was in high school, you had to classify and sort out your waste, and I feel like that's not something that you do back home. Back home, you would only have one waste bin, and you would chuck everything inside that. But in high school, we had 3 different waste bins, and the way people looked at the waste was different.
When you hear the word environment, what do you think about?
When I hear the word environment,
I kind of think of destruction, you know, given climate change.
when I hear the word environment, I just think about like pretty much everything that's surrounding me, and mainly like natural things.
I hate like staying in the room. I prefer going out, and sometimes I just go out for walks. It's not like a daily thing. Sometimes I do go out and I go for a long walk.
I love being outdoors. I love hiking. I love camping. I love being with nature. I love animals.
I think about nature a lot. I link the word environment to nature most of the time.
To be honest, I don't think I'm really that connected to the environment. And
Like even if you have like the woods around here, like you don't think you're connected to the environment?
I don't, honestly, I really don't think I'm that connected to the environment. But also that has to do with the busy schedule that you have. Like you rarely get time to think about other stuff. Like you rarely get time to be alone and think about what's going on. Forget about thinking about environment.
I myself, I care a lot about the environment. I grew up caring about the environment in my family. My mom used to always tell us like whenever I leave my room, I have to turn off the light, and if I don't do so, she gets mad. And that was something they will always remind me to do.
I think I can stop using plastic bags. And I can carry stuff in hand, or maybe I can use my bag to carry stuff. I mean, plastic bags. I think in US too, they use a lot of plastic bags.
Using like more reusable bottles and being more aware of the amount of plastic that I consume.
Probably printing, not printing. Like just use don't like waste paper and just print things. Instead, use like online.
I would say the cell phones. It's like a two-way street. Giving up cell phones benefits you, but at the same time, it benefits the environment. I feel that people really don't know the effect that the cell phones have been bringing. The radio waves that the cell phones send, apparently they have been causing extinctions to some birds.
Yeah,
The
that's
radio,
true.
and that's something that people ignore a lot. Religion and spirituality plays a big role back home,
Yeah.
and my parents are really religious, and there are parts of the forest, like the rocks and trees that they worship, that they think that the local deity and all dwell, and they preserve it, and it's basically you can't really do anything around it. You have to keep it clean and stuff like that. And that aspect, I didn't really see it in high school.
Like
Everything
religion playing
like
the role
religion and spirituality coming in together to protect the environment. That was something that I wish it wasn't just back home, but everywhere else.